a sound for the ages and the world.
Beethoven is like a bird. It takes off and it's just there flying.
Ludwig van Beethoven, maverick, maestro, a rebellious and visionary composer. 250 years on from his birth, his legacy continues to grow on all corners of the earth as new generations tune in to his music.
Wicked. How big can one person be or think?
Why does Beethoven have such a profound effect on people when they hear his music? Today, in the 21st century, in all manner of cultural contexts on all continents.
I would bet on this, that every minute of the day, someone, an orchestra, an ensemble, or someone at home is playing a piece by Beethoven non-stop.
For some, the greatest composer ever. But is this the kind of titan that lives on, or one that's inaccessible to mere mortals? An awesome quartet of notes unleashing Beethoven's fifth onto the world, and in this case, Colombia. Andres Filip Gonzales lives in Medellin and grew up with rap and hip-hop before discovering a rebellious young music maker from yesteryear.
Sentirme identificado con él. Su pasado también fue demasiado oscuro con su
Beethoven
familia
challenged conventions. He wanted to see an end to social inequality. That's how I see it, even if I'm not from the classical world. I'm from the breakdancing scene, and I'm normally into urban music. The first thing I heard by him was the Fifth Symphony. It has it all. For me, it tells you a lot about Beethoven's story and about his feelings. Sometimes elegant, but sometimes powerful and revolutionary. As if he was refusing to follow any given system. That's what I like about Beethoven.
Andres is now 21. He and his friends had childhoods overshadowed by gang-related violence. So Beethoven's own troubled background and the power of his music was something they could relate to. A pop classic hit today, the fifth became known as the Nickschas Symphony, or Fate Symphony, a work that became a vehicle for the ingenious 38-year-old composer to rebel against the political conditions of his time, against a backdrop of Napoleon, devastating wars and widespread poverty. Beethoven's nonconformist and visionary talents have made him a hit among Medellin's young people. Beethoven Moves is a special anniversary project. It's based at the Don Bosco mission launched 50 years ago to help out local street children. Until just a few years ago, Medellin was the centre of the most powerful drugs cartel in the country.
Hey, everyone over here for a sec. We want to dance instead of getting into trouble. That's how I came to be here in this project. And I want to thank you for joining me. I have a new hope for my future. Beethoven Moves has introduced me to some amazing people. People who feel like I do, and who love music and dancing.
Andres grew up surrounded by gang warfare. A number of his friends were child soldiers in various paramilitary groups. He feels a personal affinity to the German composer who had a challenging childhood.
When I heard Beethoven for the first time, I immediately felt this connection. A man who had a dark past, with his family and especially his father, who forced him to make music. Eventually, it was something he didn't want to do. I had a different relationship with my father, who's since died. He had an understanding of the things I did. Sure, he wasn't happy about me becoming a dancer. He wanted me to become something bigger, a doctor, engineer, or whatever.
On this evening, before the COVID-19 pandemic erupted, Andres is waiting at arrivals at the Medellin airport. He's here to pick up Wolfram Lernet, a violinist with the Beethoven Orchestra in Bonn, the composer's hometown. He's been the patron of Beethoven Moves since its inception in 2019.
No. Oh, okay, yeah, so.
Ja, wir haben uns sehr, sehr gut angefreundet da.
We got along from the start.
Ich habe ihn aus dem Herzen
And as he was of a similar age to my three boys, I said I'd gladly have him as a fourth son. He took me at my word. Once I was back home, he'd send me these messages every day that began with Padre.
The two spend the evening in Comuna 13, until just a few years ago unthinkable. A neighbourhood once considered one of the most dangerous on the planet, but there are now precious few traces of the cartel wars that ravaged the area. It's now home to a thriving street art scene in a city that the Wall Street Journal called the most innovative in the world.
That friendship and that new son is something I credit Beethoven with.
Our Beethoven journey now takes us to Osaka, hometown of Saiko Tanabe, a lover of classical music. Beethoven's ninth is very much part of the contemporary Japanese society. You hear it everywhere here, from bingo halls to bus stops and in television ads, reaching a crescendo at the end of the year. This is no ordinary rehearsal. This is the famous Choir of 10,000, a tradition observed on the first Sunday of December for over 3 decades now.
I applied to the Choir of 10,000 after a school friend of mine told me about it. He said, "It will change your life." I was not doing so well back then, so it seemed like the right thing to get involved.
It was after losing her father and her mother falling ill that Saiko decided to try her chances with the choir. Now 50 and with the kids out of the house, singing became a form of liberation, not least from the constraints of traditional gender roles, still prevalent in her generation. This is now her second year in the choir. And with countless thousands of devoted singers applying every year, that opportunity to perform Beethoven is a treasured one.
Music gave me comfort in a difficult time. Music gives you so much more than can be expressed in words. Beethoven had something he had to communicate via music, not language. His hearing was minimal, which is why he couldn't express himself in words.
Be embraced, you millions. This kiss is for all the world. An ode to peace between the world's nations. And this is where it all began. Here in the Ruhr Valley, not far from the great man's native Bonn, we meet a young musician. She normally writes her own songs, but today she's celebrating Beethoven in her own style. Piano Sonata No. 8, an early expression of the pain felt by the then 27-year-old when he began to lose his hearing. Perhaps no coincidence that he named it the Pathétique. Performed here by singer-songwriter Cynthia Nickschas and fellow musician Alwin Moser.
Pathétique, the word alone, the pathos, the passion is all there. It's in turns beautiful and ambitious, but then loud and furious. It's so boom, and then it all goes soft again. I can't continue, sorry. Stop thinking. One of the first rock stars. Wicked. How big can one person be or think?
Cynthia hails from a musical family and remembers quite clearly the first time she heard Beethoven.
The fifth. I came down to the living room with my mom playing it really loud. She was painting the walls, and you had this massive symphony. I spent 2 or 3 hours with her listening to the music while she painted the walls.
And she finds the contradictory personality of the maestro anything but off-putting.
Yes, he came across as arrogant, aggressive, and misanthropic or whatever. But what went on in his mind was all the more tender and harmonious and divine. Every genuine creation of art is independent and more powerful than the actual artist, and returns to the divine through its manifestation. It is one with man only in this, that it bears testimony to the mediation of the divine in him. What Beethoven meant was that the things and the music you write do not come from within you. They're bigger than you. And that's something I also feel again and again. I might be on the verge of giving up. I have no money left, no energy left, nothing. This thing is a lot bigger than me, so I can't stop. And I think it's the same with a lot of other artists too.
That authenticity and independence are something that with Beethoven manifests itself in the most subtle of melodies. For Eliza, for many children around the world, their first encounter with Beethoven's music, as we also discover in the parched landscape of northern Namibia. Ronaldo Kandume grew up in the old mining town of Tsumeb. He's currently studying information technology at college 400 kilometres away in the capital, Windhoek. He also plays with the Namibian Symphony Orchestra, an achievement that has made him the pride of his hometown. His story began here at the Tsumeb Arts Performance Centre. Now 22, Ronaldo takes us back to the very first time he came here as a young boy.
At the entrance itself, when you walk in, you hear so many instruments and kids running around and all sorts of noise and stuff. And what surprised me or what took me to head was the fact that there was one specific sound that was irritating me. It was like, what is that? I was so keen onto knowing what that sound was. And then I remember the director, I was busy teaching the violin. I didn't know if it was a violin at the time. I was just like, wow, this sounds nice. I went back home Came back the next day, started playing the violin, and till now, I didn't want to stop.
And the idea here is to give as many children as possible the chance to experience the magic of music. "13,000 people live in Sumeb, most of them dependent on tourism. But music has assumed an increasingly important role since Swiss schoolteacher Liz Hitler founded the Performing Arts Centre.
Here, let me now say in Namibia, when it comes to instruments, we are not out there, like really out there. So people don't really understand and they don't know what musical instruments can do for what. Mentally, it helps you calm down when you are relaxed. I mean, when you have stresses and stuff like that. It's not easy for people to understand it because they don't have the first-hand experience. So they used to ask me like, "Why are you playing the violin? You are wasting your time." Me personally, I am a very patient person. So I believe that things always will work out.
The universal magic of music and of Beethoven, a man worshipped and embraced around the world. Our next stop is Australia's east coast and Brisbane, a world away geographically but not musically. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Classical Music Division recently carried out a survey of 100,000 listeners to determine the country's favourite composer. And the winner was, well, not a local hero.
When you work through a Beethoven piece, I've always been struck by how didactic it is. I think like the really big German sort of traits that he's got is the climaxes. You know, you can tell when a Beethoven symphony's finishing up, you know what I mean? Especially when you compare him to someone else from France or something.
Cellist Joshua Rivery grew up in Brisbane and used to play with the Queensland Youth Symphony Orchestra. For his college graduation thesis in composition and music technology, he conducted an analysis of Beethoven's style.
I'm always a big fan of when I listen to Beethoven about how he manipulates the harmonies within like contrapuntal technique. So yeah, because again he has really good control over the melodies and all the lines, all the contrapuntal lines. But he manages to do it in a way that is incredibly expressive and surprisingly chromatic.
Just one of countless musicians Beethoven has challenged and inspired down under and all over the world.
I think he would be amazed at the level at which his music is played today. Because when he composed it, the ability of the musicians was nowhere near where it's now. And he was really frustrated constantly that people couldn't play his music. Yeah, that's the life of a conductor in many ways.
Alondra de la Parra was born in New York and grew up in Mexico, and is one of the most exciting new conductors in today's classical world. The outgoing music director of the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, seen here in rehearsals for Beethoven's Sixth, the Pastoral Symphony. But what would the man with the grumpy reputation have made of a woman at the helm?
I think given his personality, he would have a really hard time talking to me. I think so. I think he would probably think I cannot do my job or something like that. So I think it would be an interesting conversation. But God knows, maybe in one good day he would be fine, I don't know.
The orchestra and its conductor's reputation have preceded them. The evening's performance of Beethoven's triumphant tribute to nature is sold out and proves to be a rousing rendition.
And every time I'm conducting Beethoven, I feel like I'm being part of something bigger. Well, his Pastoral Symphony talks, of course, about destiny, fate, hope. Its proportions are so unified and associated with nature. I'm hearing the sound, I'm hearing the pulse from the bass and getting to the violins, and this pulse that then culminates into what feels like hope. And it just happens. It's not something that I prepared to think. It's just in the moment I think this has nothing to do with me or with the musicians who are here or with the audience. This is something transcendent, yeah. So Beethoven is in every music composed after him. So every musician after Beethoven was influenced by Beethoven.
Some 9,000 kilometres to the north, we meet another of Beethoven's talented admirers. Chennai in eastern India is home to 7 million people, including 14-year-old Lydian.
I would have been the happiest person if I would have met Beethoven. And in India, everyone's favorite composer, Beethoven mostly. And Beethoven is very famous in India. And all the pianists in India and all the Western classical people listen a lot to Beethoven.
In Chennai, formerly known as Madras, Lydian is something of a celebrity. He was hailed as a child prodigy at an early age and has now become known to the wider world. In 2019, Lydian won the American TV talent show The World's Best. Host James Corden was not the only one bowled over by the young musician. Ellen DeGeneres invited him on to her famous talk show. And it was his performance of one work in particular that convinced American music fans of his talent.
I heard Moonlight Sonata, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, and I really loved it. And after hearing that name, and my dream became that I want to play Moonlight Sonata in the moon. I took Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata in just like 2 days, and then I performed it in a lot of stages.
Beethoven dedicated the piece to a young countess and student of his and dubbed it quasi una fantasia, in the style of a fantasy. Evoking lament, loneliness and desperation, it heralded the dawn of the Romantic era, and his contemporaries loved it.
His compositions are so beautiful, and his arrangements especially. So people should listen to Beethoven, and Beethoven should be even more famous like how he is now.
The teenager has now also turned his talents to soundtrack composition for Bollywood and Hollywood.
When he was a child itself, he composed a lot of pieces which inspired me a lot. So now I get to compose more by seeing Beethoven.
But exceptional talents are no guarantee of becoming a virtuoso. Lydian's father, himself a musician, has been mentoring the career of his son.
Yeah, I can't compare myself to Beethoven's father, however, to be very honest, but still I'm doing my best to my son. In this upcoming generations, there are so many, you can see the growth in technology and everything. But nowadays, nothing is in our hands. But still, I want my son to grow discipline with music.
But the piano was not the first instrument that Lydian played. It was his feats on the drums that propelled him to nationwide fame on television shows.
also, wherever I go, nowadays, people get to recognize me, and few people say I'm God's child, I'm God gifted, and few people used to say that he's a reincarnation of Beethoven or others. So I really feel so connected to all the composers, and especially Beethoven. I feel very happy about it.
Back in Medellin, the break dancers and street artists are composing their very own rendition of Beethoven.
Right, so you're doing Beethoven and we paint the rest?
Yes, just like what we've already started at the back there.
Okay.
Andres has an optimistic outlook, well aware that his life could easily have turned out very differently.
Mi vida sin baile.
My life without dance, I can't say. It might otherwise be pure chaos. Dance was a way out of my old world. I might not be sitting here right now. I'd probably be somewhere else. In a gang, or maybe even dead.
Andres' memories of the past are something that still haunt him every day.
This is where it happened. The shot grazed my ear. My whole body turned cold, and when I looked behind me, I saw this boy. His blood was already flowing all the way to the gutter. I was still just a kid, but seeing dead people everywhere was just normal. You'd see a body and just step over it. That was how daily life was back then.
But gradually, Medellin has been recovering from its bloody past. Andres is eager to travel and see more of the world outside Colombia. He has a number of ideas about where that new chapter in his life will take him. But making that move will not be easy.
Hola. Bien. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y usted qué?
Bien. ¿Cómo te fue?
Bien, gracias.
Ah, bueno. Gracias a Dios.
Vale. Sí. ¿Y usted cómo está?
Bien, gracias a Dios.
He does know that he won't accept being dictated to, just like his hero, Beethoven.
Capitalism insists on the world conforming to its rules. Beethoven was never one to follow rules. He never wanted to conform and do what other people expected of him. Amazing. I see a similarity. I'm also a bit of an anarchist, but this guy is second to none.
That's another reason why Beethoven works here. He didn't have a nice childhood. His father was a drinker. By the age of 12, Beethoven was already earning his own money and feeding his family, playing for the Hofkapelle in Bonn. It was a tough time. People from the new middle class gave him clean clothes. They took pity on the boy, who was apparently poorly dressed and smelled bad.
Beethoven is a vital common bond between Andres and Wolfram Lernet. When their Spanish or German skills aren't enough to communicate properly, they always find a mutual understanding via the big man's music.
What I find fascinating about Beethoven is how he was the first composer to let me, as a musician and as a listener, enter his mind. You can feel what he's thinking while composing. And once you're inside that mind, you get a feel for that humanistic mindset of Beethoven, this all men shall be brothers attitude, and his big vision of music connecting people.
Seine große Vision, dass die Musik die Menschen verbindet.
Andres loves his homeland but has plans to move to Germany and enroll in a dance academy, with Wolfram's support.
Okay, in the intermediate is a modern dance. Try again.
Much better.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
It's that humanism resonating through Beethoven's work that connects all manner of different cultures: Colombia, Germany, and Japan. Across the Pacific in Osaka, final rehearsals for the superlative concert. Making it into that select group of 10,000 involves months of rehearsals and preparing meticulously at home too. Saiko Tanabe's generation grew up with a keen interest in Western culture and in Beethoven. A century ago, German prisoners of war gave what is believed to be the first performance of the Ninth Symphony in Japan, a work that certainly struck a chord in the island nation.
Japanese people like the Ninth. We associate it with happy moments and occasions like New Year's or the lottery. There's a tendency to call classical music uptight. But with the exposure the Ninth has had on TV and radio, it's something that has really grown on us.
The day before the big concert, Saiko and her fellow singer friends sing their own rehearsal. Beethoven, as ever, providing a special bond at this time of year. It's set to be a long evening of song and praise.
It's like the lyrics for the Ninth. All people shall be brothers, shoulder to shoulder. We've come to Osaka to sing, and I'm just glad to be here.
Be embraced, O ye millions. Take this kiss for all the world. That passage makes me feel like working alongside Beethoven towards the big finale. What I like most about this song? Everything.
And then, finally, the big day begins. At the crack of dawn, the thousands of choir members from across Japan begin to gather outside the concert hall in Osaka.
The Ninth Symphony is what gave me joy in life.
Beethoven brings joy, and not just with his bombastic symphonies. His appeal also comes from the more modest melodies that everyone knows, all around the world. For Elisa, for Ronaldo Kandume, an expression of unrequited love on the part of Beethoven. who ultimately never married or had children.
I feel like he was a lonesome genius because of the music he composed. Listening to the things he composed, I would feel like it's for someone that was really going through so many things.
Ronaldo puts on a star showing at the wedding he has taken us along to. The bridal couple requested this special soundtrack from Ronaldo, a mix of pop and classical sounds and elements of traditional Namibian music.
Basically, I live off my violin, and if there aren't any gigs and stuff like that, it's always a bit of a problem, but it's okay, I think. And that's how I managed to get those expenses sorted.
Music has been a journey for Ronaldo, an unconventional one that has marked a departure from the world of his childhood.
Home, you know, that comfortability and the way you just, when you come back home, how you feel comfortable, relaxed and stuff like that. It's a very wonderful feeling, because you come back and you know, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to do a few things that will change people's lives.
Some of the young people who played alongside Ronaldo back then never managed to make that break from the past. Some are still struggling today with addiction problems. Ronaldo's older brother Steven still lives where the two of them grew up.
Yeah, but I'm proud of him. I mean, he's the first one to fly out of the country from us all. He's very focused, he's very humble, and he's determined. Like you saw, he doesn't have a lot of friends. He doesn't mingle around with the people from the area, because, you know, in this area where we are, you know, there's a lot of alcohol and all the other negative things that can derail. But he is a strong mind as young as he is. So that's why he made it out from the place where we are in. As you can see, look at this area around you.
Ronaldo is determined to help the kids in his old neighbourhood to get that precious opportunity.
At this moment, my biggest goal in life is to be able to inspire my generation, the kids in the location that we met yesterday, to make them believe and to make them see that music can take a person to places.
Our journey has taken us to many places where Beethoven's music has provided inspiration, healing, and even a lifeline. As we come full circle back to Beethoven's homeland. Back in the early 1990s, Moguai was one of the first techno DJs in Germany and went on to become a producer of various top international artists.
Menschen zu verbinden.
Connecting people. That's the real power that music has. And that's especially the case with electronic music.
He was given the job of creating a special remix of Beethoven's Ninth, a challenge more complicated than the DJ had imagined.
Wenn man das Lied so hört, und sagt, ja, okay,
you hear the song and think, sure, Ode to Joy. Everyone knows that from somewhere. But then you think, how am I supposed to lay a beat under that?
Okay, da muss jetzt irgendwie ein Beat drunter, also ein richtiger Beat.
That's something that can easily sound cheesy.
Immer Käse an. Das ist ganz schnell.
And that's what made it so difficult.
Ganz schnell cheesy. Und das hat die Sache so schwierig gemacht.
Beethoven's Ninth is a work that more than pushed the boundaries. A symphony featuring a choir and with performances lasting 70 minutes, both unheard of at the time. After reading the Friedrich Schiller poem Ode to Joy in his teens, Beethoven always dreamed of setting it to music It would become the fourth and final movement of his final completed symphony. By the time of the work's premiere in Vienna 1824, the composer's hearing had become so poor that he was unable to appreciate the thunderous applause.
Mich würde interessieren, wie man da hinkommt, sowas zu schreiben.
It would be interesting to know how people can write great symphonies like this. It's crazy when you look at the sheet music, incredibly complicated.
Höchst komplex und wie man da so hinkommt, auch sowas.
How does someone create that? And especially someone that young. Awesome.
Beeindruckend.
Moguai created his own techno-style ode to Beethoven, performed during a light installation festival in Recklinghausen, less than 100 kilometers away from the composer's hometown of Bonn.
Dann kann man aber wiederum sagen, okay, was ist wertig, was ist nicht wertig,
But then you can also say, what is valuable, what is right or wrong? Is a Beethoven symphony worth more than One Kiss by Calvin Harris with Dua Lipa, which was a global smash hit? The one work is pretty heavy stuff, the other totally light. Which one's better?
There are those for whom Beethoven is a hero, while for others, past and present, he's a controversial figure. His music and his story have had a lasting impact on people all around the world.
Beethoven's vision works. His music is universally understandable, and because it reaches everyone on an emotional level, it connects all of us.
His music is perfect for the soul. For me, Beethoven means peace for the soul.
The ultimate power of music is how it brings people together.
And that's the power of music. If any music really has it, is Beethoven's music.
His music is all about peace and life, about love and the world.